So in this video we will be registering or signing in the user using Google OAuth. Okay, so if I just click on this sign in, so it is going to take me to this accounts.google.com, where you usually see this in many other web applications, right? Where you just need to enter your email and your password, and then it will redirect you to the home page with the login details. Okay, so we are also going to store that information in our MongoDB, so that we don't have to manually type in our information in order to register a user or login. Okay, so let's try to sign in. So once we put in our credentials, it will redirect us to home page, and you see it will log you in with the same username that is in your Google account. Okay, and also if I just show you the response that Google OAuth provides us, so you get in the form of an object. Okay, so where you get all of this user information, so like your display name, your email, your ID, your family name, given name, whatever the information that Google has, it will provide you. Okay, so you can just use this within your application and do whatever you want with it. Okay, so let's now go ahead and implement that. We are going to create a Google OAuth, okay, for logging in and also registering a user. Okay, so for that we need to register our project. Okay, so in console.cloud.google.com, so you can just go to this Google Cloud Console, and you can just click on this Google Cloud Platform, and it will take you to this page where you will have to sign in. Okay, once you sign in, you get an interface like this. So for that, the first step is we are going to register on our Google console. So once our project is registered and authorized all the URLs that needs to be configured, okay, in order to make our Google OAuth work. Next one is we need to install a package called passport.js, where we need to also provide all those authentication details. And then finally we are going to link it up to our front end. Okay, where the if the user clicks on sign in with Google, we need to show an interface where the user clicks on the email ID and then signing the user in. Okay, or even register. So for that, first step we need to create a project. Okay, so you can just click here and create a project. So I'm just going to click on new project and call this project SparkTech. Okay, and also we need to we don't need this organization, so we can just hit create. Okay, so this will create project called SparkTech. Okay, so let's wait for it. So once that's done, we can click on select project. Okay, so right now we are interested in getting the client ID and also the API key. Okay, so in order to configure in our backend. Okay, so for that we need to go to APIs and services. Okay, so we can over there click on OAuth consent screen. Okay, first. So once that's done, so let's wait for it. So you get the screen where you need to choose the user type. So for that I'm going to select internal, which later we don't have to verify our application. Okay, so for now it says app might not. Okay, we need to switch to external itself. Okay, so let's go with that option and click create. Okay, and now we need to give the name of our application and also your email ID. Okay, so and also the supported email ID, so which email you're signed in. Okay, so I'm just signed in with this dummy email. Okay, and we don't need this any logo or anything. So this is important, which we need to specify the domain name of our application. Okay, so at the moment we are in development, which we are going to type in localhost. So later, once we are pushed to production, we need to give the actual domain name. Okay, so whatever the name is. So for now I am just going to give localhost. Okay, so this is 3000 where our front end is running. All right, and also we need to authorize the domains. Okay, so the first domain, again we are going to give this localhost 3000. Okay, this must not contain this. So for this we actually need our actual domain name. Okay, so instead of localhost, so later once we deploy it, we'll apply the final domain name, okay, of version of our application over here. Okay, so later we can do that, and we can also give email address that we actually logged in using this console dot the Google. Okay, So we can just delete this and later add it. Okay, so we can click save and continue. And now it's asking us to specify some scopes. Okay, so actually for in our app we do not require any kind of scopes. Okay, so we can just ignore this and click save and continue. And now we can we need to add some test users. Okay, so I'm just going to add in I guess we don't even need the user, so we can just save and continue. Yeah, so everything is configured. And now let's so our app has finally been registered on Google console. So once that's done, and now we need to generate an API key. Okay, so that we can work with it within our application, so within our code. So let's go to credentials. And over there let's click on create credentials. And we at the moment are interested in this API key. Okay, so let's click on that. It's going to create a random API key. Okay, so this is our API key, which we will be pasting it in our .env file, and later we will be giving it in the form of options. Okay, so within our passport.js, which later we'll be configuring. All right, so that's done. And now we need to get the client ID. Okay, so this is the ID which also needs to be which needs to be kept secret. If not, anyone can have access to our console. Okay, so for that we need to again click on create credentials and click on OAuth client ID. So it's going to ask you some a few questions like what is application type, which is web application. You can just give the name of our application. All right, and now we need to give the origin. Okay, what is the URL of our application? So at the moment we are in development, so we can give localhost. So http colon localhost colon 3000. Okay, so where our front end is running. And also redirect URIs. Okay, so like let's say if the user clicks on sign in with Google, so this has to redirect to that particular URL. Okay, so we need to specify that. So that URL is actually called so we need to copy and paste this, and I'm going to add in slash auth slash Google slash callback. So this is the URL which will be hit once we click on sign in with Google. And also we need to specify the backend URL. Okay, so actually this is backend URL, and then we need to specify the front end URL. Okay, so that is localhost 3000. And let's finally click create. Okay, so let's wait for it. Okay, so our client ID has now been generated, so we can just paste this in our .env file. Okay, so I'm just going to my code and pasting this in. So at the moment we are only interested in client ID and client secret, so we can just paste that in our .env file. So in case if there is any third-party application that asks for the API key, so for that I've already generated one. So in case if you also might want to copy that and paste it in your code which asks for it. So right now I'm just going to copy and paste. So this is our Google client ID and the client secret. Okay, so which I have pasted in our .env file, and later we'll be grabbing this within the our third party library which we are going to install. Okay, so that is passport.js. So let's have a look at that, what actually that is. So I'm in the official documentation of this passport Google OAuth. Okay, so this is version 2. So it explains you very well how to actually implement this within your application. However, I'll be explaining you step by step how exactly this works, and all the workflow that happens between user clicking on Google, sign in with Google until the user being registered or signed in. Okay, so first of all we need to install this package called passport Google OAuth 20. So once that is done, we are going to import that and configure everything. Okay, so I'll be showing you step by step how exactly it's done, and also how you will make call to this API, and then signing in or registering a user. All right, so now let's you can just have a look at this documentation. So it's you can just search in Google, so you'll just find this, and you can get to know how exactly to use it. Okay, so I'll be using it in a slightly different way. Okay, so For that I'll be creating various routes also for this your signing in. Okay, so we'll be seeing all of that in action. So back to our application, we need to right now install a few of the packages. So I'm going to my terminal and going to install. First let's navigate to our server directory. So alright, and now let's install this passport Google OAuth 2.0, and along with that we need the what is that, we need the express session. So express dash session, then we need the passport, and then we need access. Okay, so in order to make requests. So and finally, yeah, I guess that's it. Okay, so if there's anything else, we'll install it later. So now let's hit enter. So now all of our dependencies have been installed. So now let's go to our utils folder, and let's create a file over there called passport.js. All right, and now let's import few things. So I'm going to import session. So that is coming from, show me the suggestions, express session, and next I'm going to import passport. So that is coming from passport, and then I'm going to import the Google strategy. Okay, so that is import Google strategy. Okay, and that is coming from passport Google OAuth 2.0. Okay, and I can, like, rename this as Google strategy. So this is the name which most of people like use it like in building OAuth. So I'm just going to stick to the same. So strategy. Okay, so this is Google strategy. So now let's create a function called passport. All right, so now we are going to use this session. So first of all, we need the session in order to store the session ID in our local storage or in our cookies. Okay, so based on that we are going to authenticate the user. Okay, so for that we use the session, and we are going to pass in some options. Okay, like the expiry time and all of that. Okay, so first of all, we are going to use this in the form of a middleware. Okay, so for that I'm going to use the app.use. Okay, not application dot use, and first of all we need to get this app. Okay, so for this I'm going to pass this as an argument with it from our server.js. Okay, so first let's export this passport. Okay, export default passport. All right, and within our server.js, let's import that, import passport. Okay, and not from passport, that is coming from dot slash utils, utils slash passport. Right, passport.js, and I'm just going right below this and call the passport function. Okay, and then I'm going to pass in the app so that I have the access of this app variable. Okay, so I can use this as a middleware. So I'm going to first of all receive app, and then I'm going to use the session. Okay, which we imported. So session. Okay, so this is a function which we need to pass in some options. Okay, so first of all we need to pass in the secret key. Okay, so this is a key which we just need to verify within our application. Okay, so this is called secret, and we are going to get that from our environment variable. So process dot env dot session secret, we can call the session secret. Okay, okay, and first of all let's go ahead and create that within our .env file. Let's go right below this, yeah, right here, session secret, and give this any value. Like for that I'm just going to say abc123, or just give this one. And now let's pass in few more options. Like we want to like avoid any kind of resaving. So like saving the same session id over and over again, so this would actually cause some issues. Okay, when we are trying to authenticate the user. So we are going to set this false, and we are going to revalidate every single time the user logs in or logs out. So then we are going to save uninitialized, save uninitialized, and give this value of false. Okay, and also we are going to give this cookie. Okay, so this is a cookie which takes in the expiration date. Okay, so we are going to pass in a value of max age, and that is going to be 1 day. Okay, so like every day the like user has to log in, so the session id will be expired, so the user needs to log in like after 1 day. So for that I'm going to give this in milliseconds, that is 1000 into 60 into 60 into 24. Okay, so that is 1 day. All right, so that's done, and let's now finally initialize this passport. Okay, so which we actually imported, and so this is actually very important, otherwise yeah, this passport thing will never run. Okay, so app.use passport dot initialize, which is a function. All right, and we need to use this as a middleware. Okay, so whenever our okay, actually this needs to be inside this, and whenever we are like dealing with Google Auth, so this will be initialized. Okay, whenever we make a call to this, and also we need to initialize passport.session, passport.session. Right, and this just call this. So now let's initialize this Google strategy, and we'll be passing in some options like along with the client ID and the client secret. Okay, and also the callback URL, which like like when we click on that, it has to redirect to that URL, and that URL we have already set in our Google console. Okay, so for that I'm going to use say passport.use. So this is a passport middleware, so which we need to use passport.use, and inside that I'm going to initialize the Google strategy by new Google strategy. And now we are going to, so this is a function which needs to, which we are actually going to pass in some values. Okay, so that is a client ID. Okay, so make sure the spelling is right, if not it doesn't work. So that is from process dot env dot Google client ID. So that's what we actually named it, right? So Google client ID. All right, and now we are also going to pass in the secret, so client secret, and again the same coming from our environment variables. So I'm just going to copy and paste. So that is Google client secret, and also we need to specify the callback URL, and that is going to be slash auth slash Google slash that is callback. Okay, so this is a callback URL, and also this from our frontend will be hitting this route when once we click on that button. And also we are going to grab few of the things. Okay, so there will be a lot of user information that Google OAuth provides us. Okay, so in that we are just going to choose the profile and the email ID of the user. Okay, so I'm going to specify scope and set that to profile. So we need to give this in the form of an array, and then the email. All right, so that's done, and now we need to run a callback function. Okay, so once this function executes, okay, so right here, so this will take in 4 parameters. Okay, so this takes in the access token, and then the refresh token, which we are actually not using it, so this has to be written. So and then the profile. Okay, so this is the profile which we will be receiving as a response, and then the callback, and we need to run this callback. Okay, right now, and that is this callback, and we are going to this takes in 2 parameters. Okay, the first one is the null, so if there is any error we are going to pass in over here, and then we are going to get the profile. Okay, all right, so this profile which we will be getting, so this first parameter is an error, and then is this profile. Okay, so at the moment we do not have any error, so we are going to pass it null, and then we are going to get the profile. So now we need to serialize this user data that we are getting from Google OAuth. Okay, so this will not be in the form of object, so for that we need to separately create a serializer that is coming from passport. Okay, so passport dot serialize user. So you can just see from the suggestions, and we need to pass in the user and also this done. Okay, so this is basically I have taken it from the documentation. So if you don't understand this, you can just copy some of the code and paste in the documentation. It will give you a better explanation. All right, so for I've also done the same. We have just grabbed everything from the documentation and just following whatever it's been specified. Okay, so don't think I know everything, and please don't get like demotivated. So first thing is again the null. Okay, within the done function, which will take in null, and then we are going to pass in the user. Okay, so again this is an error which we don't have, and then the user, and then we need to deserialize also. Okay, so passport dot deserialize user, and then again same user and done. Then we are going to call done with null, and then pass in the user. So that is it for as far as our passport.js is concerned, and everything is done. So now let's go ahead and create some auth routes. Okay, so for that I'm going within the routes folder and creating a file there called auth routes.js. All right, and I'm going to import few things. So I'm going to import first of all Express. Okay, so we need the app, right? So we need to also initialize Express. So that is Express from Express. All right, and now we need to also bring in the passport. All right, next we are going to import Axios. So in order to make some API calls, so Axios, and also we need to bring in the user model. Okay, so we need to deal with the user. All right, so if the like when we click on sign up, we need to also store the user instance and all the information. So import user from user models dot user model, and then import generate token, which we also need in order to store the token in our cookies. And also now let's initialize the router. So const router, since you all know this already, so I'm just not going deep into this. That is coming from express dot router. All right, so now it's time to create various routes. Okay, so at the moment we'll be creating 5 routes. Okay, so one is for the once the user clicks, we are going to redirect the user to that particular page. So once the user clicks on that link, okay, so whatever the information which we'll be getting, we'll be sending that response to the front end, and also we'll be dealing if there is anything like anything like severe happens, like failed or something like that. So we are also going to handle that. So we are at the moment going to create 5 different routes. So first of all is the route which when we click on the sign in button or the sign in with Google, it has to call this function. So for that, so first let's export this router and then link it up within our server.js. So export default router. Right, and let's go to a server.js and bring that in. That is coming from dot slash routes slash auth routes. Right, and now let's go right below this that definition of your products and users routes. Okay, so app dot use, so that is slash auth. Okay, so whatever starts with slash auth, we are going to call this auth routes file. Okay, so the functions that we create, so auth routes. So that's done, and now let's go back here and create certain routes. So first is going to be router dot get. So this is going to be a get request to slash google slash callback. Okay, so we already have the auth, okay, prepended before this Google, okay, within our server.js. So once that's done, we are going to run a function. So once we hit this route, we are going to authenticate user based on this passport module. Okay, so passport dot authenticate, and we are going to pass in Google. So Google is the platform which we are going to authenticate the user, and we are going to pass in few options, that is where does the user should be redirected once it is signed in. So we are going to pass in the success URL. So success redirect, I mean, so that is going to be localhost 3000, that is home page. Okay, so for that I can just create a client URL within our .env file. Okay, so client underscore URL, and set that to localhost http colon slash slash 3000. Okay, so I can also give a slash, so that success redirect is coming from process.env dot client URL. Okay, and also if there's any failure, okay, we are going to redirect to a specific page. Okay, so we are going to create failure redirect, that is going to slash login slash failed. Okay, later we can create this in our front end. Okay, so all right, so we need to actually give this in the form of client URL, otherwise it will take the server URL, that is localhost 5000, which actually this doesn't exist. Okay, later in our front end we'll also be creating this page when there is nothing to be found. Okay, so that's done. So now let's create another route. So this route will be called once the authentication is done. Okay, so by using all the credentials. So now let's router dot get, so that is going to be auth slash Google. So I'm just going for slash Google. All right, and then run a callback which is asynchronous. Okay, so we are going to make some asynchronous operations. So rec res. All right, so now we need to write forward the response, okay, to this Google authentication server. Okay, so this is async. So now let's for that open up a try catch block. So within that let's get the response. Okay, so for the request that we make. Okay, so we'll be making that using Axios. So let's call it response, and set that to await Axios dot get. So this will be a get request to this accounts.google.com. Okay, so we need to redirect this once the authentication is done. So if you just have a look at the documentation, okay, for Google identity, so this is the URL which we actually want to redirect the user to. All right, so let's go to our application and just paste that in. And now we need to also pass in the parameters. Okay, so this will also send in some parameters like the user authentication details. So we just need to pass in the form of headers. Okay, so within that I'm just going to say not like this, and here I'm just going to say params, and give this whatever is there in our request dot query. Okay, request dot query, and yeah, so now let's console log the response. So we'll have a look at what the response it gives. All right, so and also we'll be sending the response to the client. So res dot send the response. All right, so if there's any error, let's catch the error. Okay, so I'm going to give res dot status to 500. Okay, okay, which means an internal server error, and I'm going to throw in some JSON saying there was an error, and which is an internal server error. So this is an error which is happening in the backend, right? So nothing from the front end. So that starts with 500. Okay, so that's done. And also let's console log the error. So in case we want to get to know, so console log error. All right, so that's done. And now let's create some comments. Okay, so that we get to know what this router does actually. Okay, so for this is to authenticate the user using Google. All right, and this is to forward the response request to Google's authentication server, right? So that's done, and now let's create another route. So this is a third route which we'll be creating, and this is the route where we actually register or sign in the user. Okay, so if the user is registering, we need to store the instance of this response into our MongoDB. Okay, so for that, let's give a comment saying register or login user to database. All right, so now let's define a route to slash. So this time it's auth slash login slash success. Okay, so this endpoint will be hit once we are in the home screen. Okay, using the use effect hook. So later we'll be also seeing that in action. So I'm going to open up callback with rec res, and now we need to check if the request.user actually exists. Okay, so so since we'll be also sending the the response, okay, this response to this particular route, we need to check for that. So if there is no request.user, then we are going to like throw an error. So request.user, then we are going to first of all find the user which is in our database. Okay, so if the user exists, then we just want to log in the user. Okay, we do not want to register the user again. So if the user isn't registered, we are going to register the user. Okay, so let's call this user exists and set that to await user dot find one based on the email. Okay, so that is coming from reg dot user. Okay, so this has a property of dot underscore json. Okay, dot email. Okay, so this I just checked in the response, okay, that we get over here, and later I'll also be showing you what we actually get. Okay, and now we need to check if the user exists. All right, and then if the user exists, then we just want to sign in the user. So we just want to generate token. Okay, and then we want to pass in the response, and the user exists dot underscore id. Okay, so this will fetch the user from the database, and which has a property of underscore id. So that's done, and now if the user doesn't exist, so else, and now we need to sign in the, like, we need to register the user. Okay, so I'm going to call this new user and set this to new user, which I'm going to create an instance using the user model. Okay, so this is another way of creating a user. Okay, and later we just need to save the instance. So, and let's pass in the name, whatever the required fields are. So rec dot user dot underscore json again dot name. Okay, this time, so this underscore json will contain all the different information about the user. So then the email, so this is going to be the same thing. Okay, and then we need to have a password. Okay, so for password we can temporarily just set something so that later the user can actually change the password. Okay, so at the moment we do not have any mechanism to set the password like right after the user logs in with Google Auth. Okay, so for that we are just setting a dummy password. So password, and set this to date.no. Okay, which is always a unique value. So this will create a timestamp of the current value. Okay, the time in milliseconds, and this is like, let's say, dummy password. All right, and later the user can of course change the password, which we have already implemented. All right, and now let's generate the token. Okay, and passing the response, and the new user this time dot underscore id. Okay, and now let's finally save the user instance. Okay, so await new user dot save. All right, now let's send the response. So res dot status, set that to 200 if everything is okay, and then JSON we are going to pass in first of all the okay, the user. Okay, so the user that we are getting uh, from this Google OAuth, so that is going to be first of all we need to spread across this reg.user. Okay, and also we need to pass in some additional values such as the isadmin field, which we locally set up within our MongoDB. Okay, so for that I'm going to use a spread operator if you're familiar with ES6 dot user, and also I'm going to add in the isadmin property. Okay, so isadmin, so by default it will be false. Anyways, we are sending the user exists dot isadmin. Okay, so we are sending that in the form of response, and also we can send in a message saying successfully logged in. All right, and we need to give a comma, and now we need to also like give id. Okay, so the id, we do not contain the MongoDB id within our the response that we get from Google Auth, so we need to explicitly mention that. So that is id, that is new user exists dot underscore id. All right, so that's done, and now let's handle the else part. Okay, so if there is no request dot user, then where do we go? Hmm, yeah, right here. So else, so rest dot status, that is 403, which is forbidden. Okay, and then we want to throw new error. We can also send in JSON, but anything works. Okay, so let's say not authorized. All right, so that's done, I guess. So we have already finished our third router. Okay, route. Okay, and also we need two more small routes. Okay, just for handling the failed request. Okay, so for that we need to define another route. So that is going to be slash login slash failed. Okay, and then we want to like pass in the request and the response. All right, so if you're feeling like what is actually going on, so later once we actually practically implement this, I'll just show you what function actually does what, and also if we deliberately like try to fail the user to log in through Google Auth, then we are also going to like have a look at the errors, as well as also when we want to also log out the user. Okay, so what is actually going on behind the scenes, so everything will make sense once we do it practically. Okay, so just don't get overwhelmed by a lot of code that we are typing. So let's rest dot status, that is 401, which is not authorized. Okay, and then we want to throw new error saying login failed, something like that. And now let's create another route for logout. So router dot route, slash, so this is a router dot get slash logout. Okay, so now we just need to call the logout function, which we get from the request object. Okay, so for that request dot logout, so right here, and we just need to first parameter will be the error. Okay, so if there's any error, we are just going to display it. So let's check for that. So if there's any error, then let's console log the error, and if sorry, error, and now we just need to redirect the user back to the home screen. Okay, so for that we can use rest dot redirect to slash. Okay, so that's done. So finally we are done for the auth route. Okay, so let's also give a comment here, so saying login failed, and also here logout. Right, so that's done, and now let's mount this to our front end, okay, and make various requests so that we can, log in through Google OAuth. So actually, there's a small change we need to do. We need to change this name to some other name, since this will conflict with the passport module that we are importing from the passport library. So I just call this passport util, and you too can do the same, okay. And since we are default exporting, we just don't need to rename that in our server.js. And also one more thing is I forgot to add in the .js extension, which I have already added right now. Okay, so these are small bugs. Okay, so we just need to resolve it. So now let's go to a front end and make a call to this API. Okay, so that is auth/google/callback when we click on the button. So let's open our client directory, and within where do we have that login, okay, and also register. And now let's create an on-click handler on the Google's sign in button right here. On click, and let's call it handle Google auth. All right, and let's create that function. All right, so now let's open up our try catch block. So within try, we just need to redirect the user to this backend URL, that is /auth/google/callback. Okay, so for that I'm just using the window.location.href, so it should point at that URL. So we don't need to use the link tag. Okay, so since this is works, this is a backend URL, right? So that actually doesn't work. So I'm going to give this in the form of backticks. So we already have configured the backend URL within our constants.js, so that is localhost 5000. So right now let's implement that. So backend URL. Okay, so let's auto import that, and /auth/google slash callback. All right, and now let's catch if there's any error. So we are just going to post dot error, and we are just going to like pass in the same thing. Okay, I should have probably copied and pasted it. So this, let's call it error. And yeah, so everything is done now. Also let's copy and paste it within our register screen as well. Okay, and let's give the same on click handler. So again I'm going to copy that. Alright, so we are done now. We just need to go to the home screen, because this will redirect us to the home screen, right, since we have already specified that within our auth routes. That is it should take us back to the home screen, and that's where we need to run the use effect hook, and then like call the particular route. Okay, so we just need to go to our home screen. So let's go to our home screen, and we just need to like create a function, and then we'll be calling that once the component mounts on the screen. All right, so let's go here and make a use effect hook. Okay, so that is going to take a function, and since we are, this is asynchronous, right, so we cannot directly call that over here. So we just need to create a separate function and then call it over here. Okay, so let's call that get user, and within our dependencies we do not need to pass in anything, which means that this should run once the component mounts. Okay, so not this get user. What's going on? So now let's create that function. So this is an asynchronous function. All right, so now let's open our try catch as usual. when we know that something wrong might occur. So if there's promises to handle, so let's grab the response first, and let's await. We are going to make a request using Axios library. So Axios, first of all, did we actually install in our front end? Let's have a look. Where's our package.json? Okay, so we yeah, we already have the Axios. Okay, so let's use that and import it. Okay, so what is wrong? Nothing. So response, so Axios dot get, we are going to make a request to the backend URL. Right, so slash auth slash Google, sorry, not Google, so it's login slash success. Okay, so this is the second route that we created. So now let's also pass in some information. Okay, so this needs to have the value of his credentials is true, since we are passing some credentials. Okay, so we are dealing with that. So with credentials, set this to true. Okay, so otherwise it doesn't work. So next we need to let's log the response to the console. So this has a property called data whenever we get make a request using Axios. So and then we are going to dispatch set credentials. So we need to store the credentials in our local storage, right? And also the expiration time. So dispatch, we need to import that. So also we have imported that, and const dispatch equals use dispatch. And that is set credentials. Hopefully we can auto import it. Yes, there we go. And we just need to pass in the response. Okay, so we have various properties. Okay, so we just need to spread across the response dot data that we get dot user. Okay, so this contains a property of the user which contains all the information, and also remember the dot js underscore json. All right, and yeah, so and also we need to get the ID. Okay, so we just need to also pass in the ID, so that we have already sending, right? So where's that auth routes? So we are also sending the user ID. Okay, so let's also grab that. So underscore ID, and set that to s dot data dot underscore ID, and then also the is admin property. Okay, so that also we are sending in. So is admin, so that is coming from rest dot data dot user dot is admin. Okay, so that's done. And now if there's any error, let's put the same message. All right, so that's done. I guess we need to import toast, so that is that's imported. And yeah, now let's have a look. Now let's run both our front end and back end. So I'm going to the root directory and npm run dev. Hopefully we don't have any errors. Okay, so let's hope for the best. So luckily we do not have any errors. So let's go and test it. So we are getting an error here saying that rendered fewer hooks than expected. I know like what is the problem actually. So we just need to like place this above this. Okay. So maybe because we need to declare all the hooks at the top. Okay. So that's why we need to do this. And now let's check it out. Okay. Hopefully it works. So we are getting some errors. Okay, so let's have a look one by one. So the problem is it is making this call right away once the home screen is mounted on the component, or in other words, once we load our application. So this should only be called once we click on the like the button, okay, so to sign in with Google OAuth. So that is the problem, and I couldn't find any other way to figure this out other than like making that error. Okay, so once this component loads, it will just show that error. However, we just need to like get rid of that error. So for that, we need to go to our auth routes, and we are actually stopping the response there itself. Okay, so instead of this, we can just pass in some JSON saying giving a message saying like not authorized. Okay, so initially if the user is not logged in, so not authorized. All right, and give it a save, and now that should get rid of that error. So if I refresh the application, so now we get all of the products because it was blocking the request response cycle. Okay, so if we have a look at our console, so still we get this error. Okay, so even though we have configured cars in our application, we are still getting this error, and it says that this value in the header must not be in the wildcard. So actually I just searched for this error in Stack Overflow, and I just found a solution for it, which actually worked. So I'll be also be pasting that link over here. Okay, so you can just, in case want to have a look at it. So this is the link, and now we can just paste in whatever we get from Stack Overflow. Okay, and also we'll be I'll be explaining it. So this is a middleware which we need to configure within our application. That is, we are actually setting a header within our response object, for access control allow origin to this particular URL, that is our front end, which is running on port 3000. Okay, and then we are going to call the next middleware within our response request response cycle. And also we need to explicitly mention some options within our cors middleware. All right, so inside that, we just need to specify an object, okay, where we say the origin, okay, exactly where it is our front end is running, that is localhost 3000, or it is when we actually type in the IP address. So when we actually type in the IP address without any like standard names like this, and also what are the methods that this should allow. Okay, so and also the credentials is true, and we also allowed that within our home screen, right? So with credentials too, so that should also be there. Okay, so that's done, and hopefully this should work. Okay, so I just got this from Stack Overflow. You too can go there and grab this. Okay, so let's now test it out. So now if I refresh, you see now we no longer have that cause issue. Okay, and immediately once the home screen is mounted, we get this errors because we are right away making this call, because this should be called once we hit the this Google sign in button. Okay, so let's now go ahead and try it once. Okay, so if I go to a sign in and click on sign in with Google. Okay, so it will take me to this page, okay, accounts.google.com, where you need to like enter your credentials and also your password. Okay, so once you click like next, then it will take you to the home screen where you will actually be logged in. Okay, so I'm just going to enter my credentials now. So here we are getting an error saying that this URL is not found. I know why this error is, because we are not configured the .env file within our auth routes, okay, which is actually not connected to our main application. So we need to separately configure that. So let's go to our application and go to our auth routes, and then import the .env module. So .env from, all right, and now we just need to invoke this. So .env .config, and then call it. So this should probably configure our .env file. So because we are actually fetching this client URL, right, within this route, so that is why it's not able to fetch. We are getting this undefined, and now let's test it out. So I have restarted my server, and now let's have a look. Okay, so there we go. We are right now signed in as my username. Okay, so this is a username which is coming from my Google account. Okay, so by default it will keep this name. Later, if you want, you can change it. Okay, so now let's have a look at our console and see the response that we logged it to the console. Okay, so this is coming from home screen. Okay, so if I just show you that, so this is the response that we are sending from the backend. So this response.data that we are getting from this auth slash Google, login slash success. Okay, so we are getting the message successfully logged in, and the user with all the information that we are getting from Google Auth. Okay, so this is a given name, my family name, my picture also you get. Okay, so if we have uploaded a picture in our Google account, so we can also display that if you want over here, but I'm not going deep into that. So and also we get this underscore id which we also mentioned. Okay, and yeah, everything is good, and also we get our email id. You can just have a look at it. Okay, what does it actually do? And yeah, so pretty cool, right? So now let's have a look at our MongoDB database, if this particular user is actually registered. Okay, so if I just go to my compass, and if I just refresh this, where's refresh? So now I get you see this my name, okay, with through which I registered. So and also the password. Okay, so this is a dummy password, but if I want, I can just change it later. And of course all of these credentials, all these details are from MongoDB, which we need to specify in this order. Okay, so that's done. I hope this was clear. So now if I go to my application tab and check my cookies. Okay, so along the JWT I also get this session ID. Okay, so this is auto generated by Google Auth, so by the passport.js module. So actually we are not verifying the user based on this, but only with the JWT. Okay, so so this actually doesn't matter in the first place. So anyways, we are actually storing that also in our cookies. And now let's log out and see if we actually are logged out. So if I click on logout, we are successfully logged out, but we also need to remove this session ID. Okay, so we are logged out successfully, and now let's also handle that. Okay, so within our user controller, so along with the logout user, we also need to clear the cookie of this connect.session ID. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and uh, paste it right below this, and I'm just going to call this, so that is connect dot sid. So that is the session id, and we just need to clear it. So let's save this and again try it. So when the second time you try to log in, okay, so all of your information will be cached. Okay, so when you just hit on sign in with Google, it will immediately sign you in. Okay, so with that same information. And now let's try to log out. Okay, so log out successful, and let's check our cookies. So right now we do not have any cookies. Okay, so both the cookies are right now cleared. So that's done. I hope this video of Google OAuth is clear. And also there are some bugs, okay, to be resolved, like I just showed you, right? Once we go to our home screen, and it should actually it directly makes this call to this auth slash Google slash callback. So this one, so if I just refresh that, so this one, it directly like makes this call. So actually I couldn't find, because we have to make this within our home screen, and if we do not, we have no other way of logging in. Okay, so I'll just leave this source code open, and also I'll report an issue, so that anyone can come over there and contribute to this, where you can just fork the repository. And also, like, once you make the changes, you can just create a pull request, where I'll just have a look at the code if everything works fine, and then I will merge it. Okay, so by this you can become a contributor to this amazing project. All right, so I'll just do that, and I hope to see you contributing to this project as well. So thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.